The footage we're about to show is from the body-worn camera of a police officer in D.C.
Give up! Give up! Give up! Give up!
There were a lot of people around who were vocally upset to see this cop punching someone who was restrained by two other officers and pent up against a fence.
He admitting it. No, he admitting it. He said he wrong. So you wrong? He wrong. He the one who punched him. No, he wrong. It's him.
What if we didn't have this footage? What if this officer didn't hit the on button for their camera before the interaction? What if the officer forgot to charge the camera the night before and the battery died? What if they just didn't feel like bringing their body-worn camera to work that day? At the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, the bare minimum we were asking for was for police to wear body-worn cameras so we at least had accountability in instances of police violence. In 2017, this headline ran on the front page, print and digital, for the New York Times. A policy lab linked to the mayor's office in D.C. sought to assess the effectiveness of police body-worn cameras, so they ran a very large randomized control trial. An extremely important facet of a good randomized control trial is having compliance. This means that folks in the control group didn't take the treatment, so if an officer was not assigned to wear a camera, he didn't wear a camera. And if you were in the treatment group, you received the treatment, meaning you actually had a police body-worn camera for your interactions with civilians, and it was charged and turned on. Because there was this law around the body-worn camera program that required they report on their use, I calculated the hours of use during the time of this study. Between January 2017 and June 2017, we have about 203,000 hours of footage, which breaks down to about 68 hours per officer. If you consider that they work a 40-hour work week, it seems suspiciously low to only have 2.5 hours of footage. Are they interacting with civilians for more than 2.5 hours per week? An oversight board in D.C. looked into this and determined that many officers failed to turn on their body-worn cameras as required during interactions. There were 227 internal investigations during the time of the study between January and June, and among those, the vast majority, 164, confirmed that the officers failed to turn on their cameras as required during interactions. The average minutes per interaction and number of videos per officer tells us next to nothing about actual compliance. An officer could turn their camera on for the first 2 minutes of an interaction, then turn it off, then have another interaction that's 20 minutes, and we would still have an average time per video of 11 minutes and 1 interaction per video. How can we expect to measure the impact of police body-worn cameras on policing behavior if they could use them at their discretion? They could choose which interactions they turned them on for, or even what days they were wearing them. The peer-reviewed version of this study included a key clarification about the precise findings. First, they noted the non-compliance, and then described that the study was not measuring the impact of wearing a police body-worn camera and having it turned on during interactions with civilians, but actually the effect of simply being assigned to wear a body-worn camera. And so the New York Times should probably correct the main takeaway from this study, because it very well might be the case that if a police officer is wearing a body-worn camera and it is turned on for every interaction, they might greatly reduce the officer's likelihood for using excessive force and engaging in police violence, but that's not what this study explored. The real finding of this study is that officers think that they can have accountability at their own discretion. They can decide whether or not to use these cameras, even when the public prefers they do.